I think you're on mute.
He's out of the picture. You are the host. He's coming back on now.
Are you on mute?
Oh, sorry. Even a soldier in the army doesn't train for 5 years. Any Kohen who wanted to serve in the Beis HaMikdash had to train for 5 years. Let's see. Oh, it doesn't die on me again. Right.
We can hear you.
Okay. So being that there were thousands and tens of thousands and at times hundreds of thousands of korbanos sacrifices being brought at once, and it wasn't possible, given everything, the manpower and the volume coming in order to burn all the parts which had to be burned on Mizbeach by day. So they would continue burning throughout the entire night. And how do you know you could do it the entire night? So the Gemara says, so if you have an Art Scrolls 21a1, you're able to burn the leftover fats and limbs of the offerings on the Mizbeach the entire night. How do you know that? As it is written, Kol halayla ad haboker. Says that a Kohen, every single morning they would have to take some ashes off of the Mizbeach. The ashes, the Torah says, which was left over from what was a fire that was burning the entire night. Why do you need a fire the whole night in the Beis HaMikdash if you're not bringing any korbanos? It must be that you were bringing korbanos. What type of korbanos? Not new korbanos, because as we learned, this whole Mishnah had brought many sources how you can't bring a korban at night, but rather you would bring the limbs and the fats which were not burnt during the daytime. It could be burned on Mizbeach the entire night.
It was like a b'diavad.
You could say so, right? B'diavad. Although it was a b'diavad that came lechatchila. Like sort of, there's certain limits, certain months. You should only get married in the first half of the month or the second half of the month, or not at all during the entire month. Let's say the month of Av, only the 15th of Av. But nowadays, because there's Baruch Hashem, so many marriages, so many people looking to get married. There's not a lot of locations which are large enough for everyone to get married. So you can get married at any time, or you can get married. Almost all the limits are off. Besides for serious Omer, like the basic limits, the 9 days, the 3 weeks. But in general, the limits of you can only get married in the first half of the month or the second half of the month, or in the month of Av, only in the 15th of the month. Generally, we don't keep these limits today.
So it's in the 13th of Sivan.
13th of Sivan. Yes, that's a good day to get married.
It was also actually the same year, the year before my wife converted. And it wasn't like we planned it. Shem arranged the special day.
Continues the Gemara, explaining the Mishnah. The Mishnah now gave a list. If you have 21a1, the Mishnah gave a list of mitzvahs which can be done only during the day, and mitzvahs which can be done only during the night. And then after listing off the whole list, the Mishnah says, Zeh haklal. This is the principle. Davar shemitzvasi bayayim kosher kol hayayim. Any mitzvah which is a daytime mitzvah, by definition, can be only done during the day. So the Gemara asks, Zeh klal la'asuyei mai. What are we missing when the Mishnah is telling us this rule? This is a general principle, that any mitzvah which is a daytime mitzvah can be done during the entire day. When the Mishnah says that, klal, you usually have other situations included in the same rule, which the Mishnah didn't specify. So what other situations are daytime mitzvahs that can be done the entire day, which you would think in the beginning would only could be done a set time during the day or maybe by night? Also, what mitzvah is being added on that the Mishnah didn't specify? A mitzvah which can be done the entire day. La'asuyei mai. What is it coming to add on? So answers the Gemara, la'asuyei, it's coming to add this principle that any daytime mitzvah can be performed throughout the entire day. Sidur bezichin v'siluk bezichin. Setting up of the spoons and removing of the spoons. So I'm going to put it up here on the screen, but although I don't have the screen with me over here, behind me, one of the kelim, one of the vessels in the Beis HaMikdash is called the shulchan, the showbread. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit to the shulchan. If you zoom in a little bit over here, you see this is actually a table, a wooden table. It's covered in gold. And there are 5 layers, 5 levels of golden branches. And these, on this, you would put what's called the lechem apanim, the showbread. And on, you know what, I'm going to turn it around for everyone to see, because there's a video I'm going to show momentarily. And if you zoom up, you see here is a picture, here's a look of the entire. This is what it looked like when you walked into the Heichal, to the sanctuary. Here is what it would you would see on the, when you walk in, on the left would be your, on the menorah, on the right would be the shulchan, the showbread table, and in front would be the mizbeach hazav, the golden altar, where they would burn every day incense. So here is a shulchan. Looking from a bird's eye view, the shulchan is right over there. A table where they would have special bread that was baked in a special way, cannot become chametz. Now, if you look and zoom in even more, you see on the table itself, trying to zoom in. Nope, not letting me. On the table itself, you have these, where the mouse is going around, you have these 2 sort of small vessels. It's called the bezichin. The spoons, that's what it calls it here in the Gemara. But these are sort of small vessels, which they would put what's called levina. Levina is not keteres, it's frankincense, it's usually white. It smelled very good, garland. And they would fill them up. And the entire week, you would have the lechem apanim, the showbread, on the table. You see here, kohanim are loading the new ones, taking off the old ones. And the different opinion is exactly how the lechem apanim, the showbread, looked like. But this is in general what it looked like. Some with apanim, 3 sides, it definitely had, according to all opinions. Now, you did have what's called every single week, once a week, which was always on Shabbos, they would replace the lechem apanim, the showbreads, and they would replace the bezichei levina, the spoons or the small vessels which had levina spice. And they would burn that. They would burn the levina every single Friday, every single Shabbos, and they would replace the lechem apanim. It was a very unique system. You see how they're doing it.
So they burn the vessel, the utensils too?
Not the utensils, but whatever's in the utensils. They would take it out and they would burn it. And then they would replace it. The Torah is a mitzvah. You're never allowed to remove the bread from the lechem, from the table, from the shulchan. So how is it possible when you're replacing it? So they would remove the supports which are holding it. They would remove that. And then they would be piled one on top of the other. And these had to be strong to hold the weight of all the other ones. And they would slide one on and one off.
Oh, maybe it's like actually, if you're adding, if you wine or grape juice and mix this in, right? And this way you can have enough for all your guests to have.
Correct. Now, every avoid, every service in the Beis Hamikdash had to, of course, took place during the day. But adding the spoons or these vessels with levina, with frankincense, and removing them, there's one opinion of Rabbi Yossi which says that it's allowed to be done at night. So therefore, our Mishnah is coming to say it has to be done by day. Now over here,
That's going against Rabbi Yossi, right?
yeah, over here there's a organization which is called the Machan Lechem Apanim, the organization of making the showbread, and they have all these different, according to all the opinions, how the showbread is made. See, it's in the shape of a ship. They're trying to make it in their own shape. And they'll go around teaching.
Is that the oven there?
They have a special type of oven, so I'm going to make this large. And
Looks yummy.
showing you how it's made. Now they're in a special type of mold. So an interesting thing is, it was all matzah. It was not chametz. It was not allowed. It was not allowed to be chametz because nothing in the Beis Hamikdash is allowed to be chametz.
Oh wow!
Except for the carbon toida, but the lechem apanim had to be matzah.
Oh,
So it wasn't the hard matzah like we have.
mhm.
It was soft matzah,
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's just like the Sephardim.
sort of like the Sephardim had, right?
Yeah.
It was softer.
Is there anything commercially that's like the soft matzah?
Yeah, the Sephardim do have soft matzah. You have to freeze it, or else it spoils. It's sort of like a lafa.
But
It's soft.
nothing in the stores.
Nothing in the regular stores. It's only an Ashkenazi cannot eat it on Pesach.
I
No, I
have
mean, they have during the.
For during the year, they have it.
I have at home matzah lasts for years
Correct.
because the Ashkenazi matzah.
Ashkenazi matzah collapsed through a nuclear.
A nuclear holocaust.
Exactly. Collapsed or anything. So the lechem apanim. Continue with the Gemara. There's 2 spoons had to be replaced every single Shabbos. So there was a seder, a way it was done of how it was removed and how it was put back. Those could only be done during the day. So it answers the Gemara, why, when the Mishnah adds a rule, Zeh, this is a general rule, anything which has to be done during the day, a daytime mitzvah can be done the entire day. What's it coming to include? And it's coming to include the bezichin, those spoons, or the vessels which had the levina, the frankincense. Sidur bezichin v'siluk bezichin. Putting in the new one, taking away the old ones, arranging those vessels with levina, with frankincense, that took place on Shabbos, but it had to be done only during the day. And it would be in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. Tanya, if we learned in a brisa, Rabbi Yossi says like this: Silik es hayishon shachris, as mentioned, there's 2 vessels with the levina, with a good smelling sense, the incense which was on the shulchan, on the table. So if you removed one in the morning, the seder is a chadash arvis, and then you put the new one on in the late afternoon, it is fine. There's in Masechta Menachos, there's a disagreement between 2 opinions, Rabbi Yossi and the Chachamim and the sages. How was the lechem apanim done? How was it ever taken off entirely? Was there ever a time that the table did not have some showbread on it? Or rather, do we say that it always had showbread every single moment, and like we showed in the picture, they would remove the supports, pile them up one on top of the other, and slide one on while sliding the other pile off? Rabbi Yossi says you can remove it. You don't have to remove the supports. You don't have to make a whole contraption, spiel every single Friday. Take them off, leave it empty for a few hours, put the new ones on. And Chachamim say no, it had to be there constantly, and you couldn't be even a moment without the showbread. Miraculously, although the bread is a week old, it always tasted warm, it always tasted fresh, like it just came out of the oven. And even a small piece was able to make a Kohen who ate it full.
I was actually thinking, the earlier generations of the Torah would have actually been able to remember, but maybe because that's actually the base of English was sometimes taken over by the Tzaddukim, right? And earlier actually had the Hellenists, so maybe actually caused it to be. Then Machlokes said, "Oh, actually, now we firmed up the place. Now we're in charge. How's it supposed to be?" And they have caused actually disputes because people now have to remember.
Correct, and also there were many persecutions. A lot of Torah was forgotten under the Greeks, and of course, according to Chassidus, the light of Hashem, the Or, is getting more concealed, and they became achloikas. First disagreements were near the end of the second Beis Hamikdash. Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel were the very first disagreements that popped up. So Rabbi Yossi says, if one removed in the early morning the lechem apanim, the bread and the frankincense, and you put v'sider chadasha arvis, and in the late afternoon you put it back, everything is fine and it's no problem. Even if it's empty from the table, is empty from showbread for a few hours, it's fine. Umani mekayim lifnei Hashem tamid. And this, that it says in the end of Parshas Emor, that on every single Shabbos, we say this on every Shabbos after Musaf, we say these psukim. On every Shabbos, you have to set 6 chalas in 2 rows of 6 chalas, 12 lechem, 12 breads, showbreads, together with levoy nezaka, pure frankincense, pure sense. On Shabbos, it has to be done. And the very last word says, Lechem panim lefanai tamid. Lefnei Hashem tamid. The last words of the verse. Next to the menorah, you have to arrange, you have to set up the shulchan, the table with the showbread, continually before Hashem. What does it mean always continually? That's a machlokes, disagreement between the rabbis and Rabbi Yossi. The rabbi says that not even for a moment could you have the table without the showbread, the lechem apanim on it. So therefore, every week they would take away the supports, pile them up, and slide one off while sliding the other one on. And the Chachamim and the sages, Rabbi Yossi said that as long as it's you can wait a few hours, take it off in the morning, put it on in the afternoon. He says as long as you don't leave the shulchan, the table of the Beis Hamikdash, without the lechem apanim, without the bread overnight, then it's okay.
And so we pass like the Chachamim, right?
Pass like a Chachamim. But this mission over here passes like Rabbi Yossi.
I see. So when Mashiach comes, they go according to the Chachamim then.
Assumingly, yes. If you have a question, we'll ask the Sanhedrin what to do.
Yep.
As Rabbi Yossi says in Masechta Menachos Daf Tzadik Tes Amud Beis 99b, he says as long as you don't leave the shulchan, the table, empty overnight from bread, it's okay. So when our Mishnah says that something which is a daytime mitzvah can be done the entire day, it comes to include, according to Rabbi Yossi, changing the spoons of levain and frankincense, and consequently also changing the bread, can be done the entire day as long as it's done during the day, and you don't leave it overnight, a time without a night to go by without having the lechem apanim, the bread on there.
It's how did the Chachamim explain the Mishnah?
They say this Mishnah, they say, is talking about something else. Not talking about. We'll not be talking about the lechem apanim. And it said every single day, every single time you do a new one, you have to move the old one, and the kohanim have to do it one next to the other. You could have a Mishnah which not going according to Chachamim, not going according to the sages, and we have to explain that halacha is not like this. Halacha is like that. But
Sometimes you're allowed to have actually a Mishnah contradicting another Mishnah.
Correct. You have it all the time.
As soon as far as the Gemara, you're allowed to have one Gemara contradicting another one too, right?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Continue. We'll learn the last part of the Gemara, and we'll miss it. Meir Hashem will finish the parak, the chapter 2. Davar shemitzvos bayayim kosher kol hayom. Davar shemitzvos belayla kosher kol hayom. Back to the Mishnah. Something which is a mitzvah to be done during the night is kosher to do the entire night. We said whenever we have the words zaklal, here's a rule. It's coming to tell you that something else which is not listed, which I would think could be done only either a specific time or could be done also during the daytime, has to tell you that this is kosher only during the night, but it's kosher the entire night to do. What's the coming to add that we wouldn't have known without this extra words of the Mishnah is a haklal? This is the rule. Answers the Gemara. It comes to include the eating of the Karban Pesach, unlike Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Tanya, if we learned it in a brisa, the achlas abasar b'layla hazeh comes the night of Pesach. We must bring a Karban, a special Karban. We bring an erev Pesach, and you would have hundreds of thousands, and we said during the time of Agrippas was 1.2 million Karban Pesachs brought in one day. You can imagine the entire city of Yerushalayim, how good it smelled from all those Karban Pesachs. Imagine a barbecue, 4th of July barbecue, with several million barbecues going on simultaneously. It's kosher the entire night. When you eat a Karban Pesach, we should have to eat it only until Chatzos, only till midnight. Tanya, if we learned in a brisa, the achlas abasar b'layla hazeh, the Torah tells us when the Jews left Egypt, you have to eat the Karban Pesach on this night. From there we see that it has to be, you can only eat the Karban Pesach during the night. Every other Karban besides for this, you could eat the night plus the next day. Here, the Karban Pesach you can only eat during the night. Meaning the entire night you could eat it, all the way till the morning. Amar Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, says Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, talking about Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah during Karban Pesach. Remember we mentioned him in the Haggadah. He says, I am like 70 years old.
Yeah.
And he says, Nemar kan b'layla hazeh, v'nemar la'alon v'varti b'eretz Mitzrayim b'layla hazeh. It says by the Karban Pesach, the words b'layla hazeh. On this night, you should eat the Karban Pesach. It also says, during the plague of the firstborn, Hashem says, I will pass through the land of Egypt on this night, and I will destroy all the firstborn in the land of Egypt. So he learns a Gzeir Shava. He learns a commonality from the words, Balaylaha, this night. That means this night. Just like when Hashem did the plague of the firstborn, it all took place in one moment. Which moment?
Midnight.
Midnight, exactly. Afkan, and over there it says the words halayla hazeh, this night. Afkan, so eating the Karban Pesach, the Pesach offering, which also has the words halayla hazeh, ad chatzos, it goes until midnight. Meaning you could only eat the Karban Pesach until midnight. The sages say, no, you can eat the Karban Pesach actually the entire night. And this you're going to tell me says halayla hazeh, this night. So we're going to say, yeah, that specific year, the year the Jews left Egypt, the year 2448, that year they could only eat the Karban Pesach till chatzos, till midnight.
And my question is, was Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah saying the chatchila to midnight, or was he saying that even actually
b'diavad till midnight?
Okay.
What is the Mafreya mean?
Mafreya means after the fact, meaning retroactively. That's the best word. Retroactively.
If it says, because we will return to you. The end of the chapter.
Says Hadran means we will return to you. So too is only Tilcha says. So Hadran Allah says we will return to you. Akaril Mafreya, the one who reads backwards. Yeah, we're going to read backwards and go back to it.
How to explain
Akaril Mafreya is the name of the chapter. Akaril Mafreya is one who reads the Megillah out of order. Right? He reads it retroactively. He reads chapter 2 before chapter 1.
Yeah.
So it says we will return to you. So Baruch Hashem, with this we make a siyum, a completion on the second chapter of Masechta Megillah, and Amir Hashem on Monday we'll continue with Parak Shlishi, the third chapter in Masechta Megillah. In the beginning, he's going to talk about again halachas, different laws of the Megillah, making a bracha, blessing on the Megillah, standing during the Megillah, and we're going to start comparing Torah reading and Megillah reading. How is it different? And from there, we're going to go on to the topic of Torah reading, how Torah reading is the entire year, how many people get called up for every aliyah, and that's going to be the topic of the next chapter. So chazak, v'nis chazek.
Indeed.
But you asked a question before, why the Mishnah? How did the Chachamim explain the Mishnah? The Mishnah cannot be the Chachamim, according to Chachamim. Because our Mishnah has to be teaching us something unique, something novel. And the only way you're going to have something in Chiddush is only according to Rabbi Yossi, not according to the Chachamim. Because
Well, that's why Rabbi Yehuda was more like an editor. I've already actually seen with my own eyeballs how it should. Maybe most of the time you don't have it this way, but a minority of the time I actually saw with my own eyeballs a case where, maybe more than one case where you see actually in the Mishnah in passing one way, and yet you see in the Gemara Rabbi Yehuda Hadassi passing it another way. So that Rabbi Yehuda Hadassi was more like an editor, not necessarily having the entire Mishnah go according to his own opinion, but saying, actually, here's the text of what the Mishnah would be, by passing it differently. In this case, it would be something that I'll tell you. So he's more like an editor.
Yeah, compiler editor, yes.
Yeah.
Now, okay, someone called me up yesterday, a friend of mine, quite I could say a little bit upset about how he watched the shir of yesterday, and I didn't mention even once about how the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash was not actually round; it was straight, sort of like that menorah right over there. The arms were straight. The Torah uses the word kana. Kana means a stick. Never seen a round stick yet, have you?
No, not on this planet.
The Rambam actually was just on display recently in Yeshiva University, but now they returned it to the Oxford Library. The original handwriting of the Rambam, you could see exactly his drawing of the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash. Now, you go to Rome and you go to the Arch of Titus, Titus's arch, which he built a large arch to celebrate the victory over the Jewish revolt, and he has over there different kalim, different vessels of the Beis HaMikdash, and that they captured, and he have over there a menorah, and over there it's round branches. Not just that, there's a lot of old drawings of menorahs all over, that they're finding all over Eretz Yisrael. Some of them going back till just after the time of the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, and you'll see round branches in the menorah. Sure, the Rambam was aware of this. The Rambam still drew a straight menorah. Rabbi Avraham, the son of the Rambam, explains, don't think my father drew a theoretical menorah. This is how he holds a menorah actually was. Now, the simple way of explaining this is, it's very simple to actually explain why there's a discrepancy and what the menorah looks like. Because in the base of Mikdash, there was more than one menorah. There were many, many menorahs. It says Shlomo HaMelech, he built 10 gold menorahs that were pure gold, which were lined up in the base of Mikdash in the Heichal. Here is a replica of a menorah, of a golden menorah. And you could pass it. This is not real gold, it's just gold coated. I read a whole book by the Machar Mikdash, the people who built these menorahs, and the one who insists that it's round, defending the position why the menorah has to be round. A lot of what they're basing themselves on, I'm just going to turn this around. A lot of what they base themselves on is the Titus's arch. Now, of course, that was built to make fun of the Jews, saying when they wanted to insult Jews, they would make them stand in front of the ark, in front of the arch. Till today, there's a Jewish tradition not to walk under the arch, to walk around it. If you look at the arch of Titus, the menorah that they have is actually does not look like a menorah. Their menorah that they have, you see, is metal and it's gold plated. It's gold plated, and they say that's a kosher menorah b'diavad. Menorah could be made of any type of metal in the base of Mikdash. The first menorah that the Chashmonaim built when they dedicated the base of Mikdash was not gold; it was regular. It was iron, I think. It could be made out of any metal b'diavad. Here is how they envisioned how the menorah was built, pouring it into a certain mold. Now, the menorah which Moshe Rabbeinu built was miksha. It was hammered into shape. Although later on it says Moshe Rabbeinu threw the whole talent of gold into the fire and Hashem made it for him. But here is how they are building the menorah. So there are many menorahs in the Beis HaMikdash. And as a matter of fact, in V'al HaNisim, we say the words V'hitliku neiros bechatzros kadshecha, and they lit candles in your courtyards. The neiros, many type of candles. Meaning there wasn't just one menorah being lit. There were many neiros being lit. Bechatzros in the courtyards. Logically, the menorah which was used for the service of the Beis HaMikdash will be inside the Beis HaMikdash. That will be straight. And the menorah which is used outside would be round. Menorah which is in the chatzros, in the courtyards, was a round menorah. Maybe it's easier to make. I'm not sure exactly what, but so this is the menorah that. So this is how you see the menorah according to the Rambam. Straight branches, although it's not exactly straight. It's not exactly according to the Rambam because this is a stepped base, which you see nowhere that the base was actually had steps in it. That there were steps in front of the menorah that we know. That that the Mekayim could light the menorah without actually lifting his hand over his forehead, because the Kohen Gadol would wear a tzitz, a forehead plate with Hashem's name. He couldn't lift his hand over that, so he would walk and be able to climb up and light the menorah without raising his hand over his forehead. Raising his hand over his forehead because he had the tzitz. The Rebbe is very emphatic that the menorah was straight, was not round, and therefore anybody who makes menorahs, public menorahs, should all be straight, should not be round.
I was also thinking of another thing. She also mentioned that you have actually like different things actually that may have been actually in the Beis HaMikdash, and someone donates, and some it's not necessarily that it would be.
So this is the Arch of Titus in Rome. That's what it looks like. And here is the picture. You see?
Yeah.
Here is a picture of, you see different parts of different vessels, different from the Beis HaMikdash, from Judea, which were captured. And here they have a menorah. And the base, you see, the base of the menorah is not a base which has a source anywhere really. That the base had steps sort of like that. There's no real source for that in any Torah or halacha, in any Gemaras like that. So that's another reason why to assume that it was not the original This is not the actual menorah that was used for the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash.
It would be a non-kosher one, or would be actually kosher this one?
Probably would be kosher. Probably. Listen, you don't have. We see this menorah if you zoom in a little bit. The cups and everything else that's supposed to be there is not exactly there in the right way. It didn't look like this. It didn't have these designs of the cups and the knobs and the flowers.
Well, maybe it was donated by Tzeduki.
No, I'm saying there were many menorahs in the Beis Hamikdash. As we say in Al Nisim, "Velikul neiros v'chasos kachecha." Now, I'm going to bring up the drawing of the Rambam. Rambam menorah. So, in order to, that's a drawing of the menorah of the Rambam.
Oh wow!
And it was recently on display in YU, and I had plans to go there. The display is still around right now, but they took away this one. I said, okay, fine, no point in going back. But there's a bunch of original Kisvei Yad, original handwritings of the Rambam over there on display. So this is the menorah according to the Rambam. You see, the base was round. So either the base was flat or round, but not indented like that. That we don't have a source for anywhere. And this is the Rambam. And what's unique with the Rambam, as the Rebbe says, the cups, the bezichin, were upside down. And that's idea of, on the Beis Hamikdash, the idea is to pour, to give light and aura for the rest of the world. To light up the Beis Hamikdash should not need the light of the menorah. Rather, it was giving out light to the rest of the world. The Rebbe said this sikha, talking about the drawing of the menorah of the Rambam, and it was on a Simchas Torah Farbrengen in the year 1984, Tashin Mem Hey. And the Rebbe said the sikha was a very exciting sikha, and then the Rebbe took his becher that he had, the cup with the wine by the Farbrengen, and the Rebbe finished it, and then the Rebbe turned it upside down, held it upside down, and said a sikha while turning it upside down. And the Chassidim understood that everybody did that. Everybody finished whatever they had in their cup and held their cups upside down.
Well, because I mean,
This is during the Farbrengen.
well, all the time you return it.
No, just when the Rebbe said the sikha about the menorah of the Rambam,
Oh,
and describing why the Rambam's drawing of the menorah, the cups are upside down. So the Rebbe explained that, and while doing that, the Rebbe held his cup upside down, saying how the idea of the cup upside down is that you're constantly pouring brachas on everybody, right? Meaning when the Rebbe is doing that, it's a very spiritual reason.
but upside down, there's no brachas.
You're pouring. Let me just see what it says here. Make this larger. Interesting. Shukayach. Thank you, Rav Label. He says Chatzos Kachecha are not the courtyards of the Beis Hamikdash, rather it's the Ira Kodesh, the holy city. I had an uncle of mine, my mother's brother, and he was very close to Rabbi Chaim Mushka, and right after the Simchas Torah Farbrengen was over before our kafas, he went to visit her, to check up on her. And so he's speaking to her, and so she asked him what's happening by the Rebbe's Farbrengen. And she told him, he told her what's happening by the Rebbe's Farbrengen. So right away, she did it in a way that he shouldn't notice, but he noticed. She took a glass cup that was on the table, it was an empty cup, and she turned it upside down also. She was also a very big chassid of the Rebbe. Chassidah of the Rebbe, correct.
Oh, no, it's actually the Rebbe's wife.
The Rebbe's wife, Rebbe Chaim Mushka. So to conclude the thought that we started yesterday, what's the point of lighting the menorah for us?
She was turning it down at the same time as everybody else?
Yeah, right. When she heard about it, and she turned it upside down as well. Right. The point of Shabbos candles is shalei kashel be'etz uve'even. You should have light in your house. You shouldn't slip on stones or rocks. You shouldn't bang into each other. Everyone should get along well in the house. That's the point of Shabbos candles. The menorah in the Beis Hamikdash was to, as we see with upside down cups, was to bring light to the entire world, to be a sign that Hashem's Shechina, His presence, rest among the Jewish people. The Chanukah candles, of in itself, don't have an end, meaning it's not there to benefit from the light, because you're not allowed to benefit from the light. It's not there to publicize a miracle, because if you're home late at night and there's nobody around, or you're in a forest all by yourself, or it's a time of danger, you do it inside, even if you're not publicizing the miracle of Hanukkah. So there's the purpose of Hanukkah candles for itself must be something for itself, something unique about Hanukkah. The war of the Greeks against the Hashmonaim, against the victory of the Hashmonaim, the family of Kohanim. It was more than a physical war, it was also a spiritual war. It's a war of beauty and intelligence and reason versus belief in Hashem. There's moichin. Moichin is intellectual, and midas is feelings. You can feel close to Hashem, and you can understand the greatness of Hashem and think about it, and that also in turn makes you have a stronger feeling of devotion to Hashem. If somebody was connected to Hashem logically or emotionally, if a Jew was connected to Hashem, potentially that connection could stop. Because what happens if someone finds a better logic? What happens if you're more emotionally connected to something else? And there's certain people which, when they connect to a cult or something, it's not because intellectually they agree with it, because emotionally they felt something filled over there. Our connection to Hashem goes beyond emotion, it goes beyond intellect. It goes because we are a part of Hashem. Just like a connection of a child to a father, a son to a father is a connection beyond understanding, beyond emotion, beyond understanding. Father, which you never met, then you feel such a connection to you. But it goes even more than that, because we're part of the same. We are Hashem. Our neshamas are Hashem. And Chanukah is the highest connection that we have to Hashem. Did the Greeks destroy the Beis HaMikdash? No. What did they destroy? The seals of the high priest of the Kohen Gadol. We're saying Judaism is beautiful. Culture is wonderful. I love the songs. It's very nice.
And he translated the Torah into Greek.
Correct. It's a beautiful thing. But let's keep Torah where it belongs. In university, we're going to have a course called the Jewish culture. And in the museum, you'll be able to see, here's what the Jewish culture was like. Beautiful, wonderful. What do you need to, I don't think the Torah is exciting. My father, he has a story when he was living in Richmond, Virginia, and he was learning together with a college, he was learning with a student in a university. And he saw him kissing a sefer after putting it away. He says, I don't get it. He says, I have a textbook written by my teacher, my professor in university. And after he's done with it, he puts it on the floor. He could step on it. I could step on it, and no one feels the least. And here's a book that's printed, and you have to kiss it, and you can't put it on the floor. So that's what the Greeks were saying. Let's just don't get it too excited. It's only do what you understand. Only do what you feel connected to. If you're not feeling excited, you don't feel it today, don't do it. Sounds like any type of form of Judaism you know about.
Yes, we're reform or conservative.
Meaning, if this is how Yiddishkeit feels to you, this is what you should do.
Yeah.
Don't do it if you don't feel it. Don't do it if you don't understand it. The Hashmonaim, they were Kohanim, and they said, we have to stand against this. They weren't against the Jews doing mitzvahs. Just do mitzvahs without excitement. They're destroying the seal of the Kohen Gadol of the high priest, meaning there's no... You want to have a ceremony of lighting candles? Beautiful. But why you have to have... It has to be pure, kedusha, impurity. They didn't destroy the Beis HaMikdash. They wanted us to make us forget that it's Hashem's Torah. The Chashmonaim said we have to stand up against this with Mesiras Nefesh, giving up our lives, sacrificing ourselves, fighting against a huge, powerful army, even if we don't have even though we're weak and we're few. Because we cannot be separated from Hashem. Hashem is our essence. And every single Jew has that inside of them, ready to give up their life for Hashem, even though they don't understand this. So the miracle of Chanukah, it's not merely representing a miracle that happened, but much more than that. The miracle of the jug of oil. We're not thanking Hashem for winning the battle, for winning the war. That is not why we light the menorah, for winning the war. We're lighting the menorah for the miracle of the oil, finding the oil. Because that is the deep connection that we have to Hashem, is represented in the oil. Now, halachically, legally, they didn't need oil with a seal of the Kohen Gadol. If the whole entire Jewish nation is impure, you're allowed to bring a korban Pesach. You're allowed to do all the avodas in the Beis Hamikdash, even if you're impure, even if you're tamei. So if the only oil you have is impure oil, you're allowed to use it. Even according to logic, according to halacha, you would ask the rabbi, "Could I use only oil we have is impure oil? Could we use it to light the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash? It's all we have. That's all you have. That's where you could use it." But they did not ask a rabbi. They went beyond that. They did not ask permission. And they said, we have to look for oil, which is only the highest quality of oil. Hashem didn't make a miracle in order for it to be a half measure miracle. It has to be all the way. And eventually they found a oil enough to last for one day with the seal of the Kohen Gadol, which was pure, and they lit it, and a big miracle happened, and it lasted for 8 days. So Chanukah candles are different than all the other candles of the mitzvah, the menorah and the Beis Hamikdash, and it's different than the Shabbos candles that are lit for Shabbos, because it's not there for a different means into itself. It's just there because it's showing our essence, our connection to Hashem, which is independent of everything else. Light is Torah. Ein or el Torah. Says ner mitzvah v'Torah or. Torah is light. And the 3 different types of light represent 3 different ways of learning Torah. Shabbos candles show on Hatzvi-Bais, which is the light of learning Torah. You're learning Torah in such a way, I want to know what to do. I need to know the halacha. I want to know what time to light my menorah. Do I light right to left or left to right? So you want to know the halacha. And Torah is also shalom, it makes peace in the world. And Torah was given to make peace, as it says in the last Mishnah. So that's like Shabbos candles, a way of learning Torah to know what to do. You have the candles of the menorah and the Beis Hamikdash, and these are testimony that the Shekhinah, Hashem's presence, rests among the Jewish people. So this is a type of light which connects us to Hashem, which means we have the Jewish people, Hashem and the Torah, and they're all connected to each other. And through the Shekhinah, Hashem connects to us. Hashem rests among the Jewish people. And that is the way of learning Torah. You're saying Torah is a godly type of thing. But Torah is Hashem's wisdom, and I want to learn it. So I'm not learning to know what to do, but rather you're learning to connect to Hashem. But even this is not the greatest level of learning Torah, to connect to Hashem. Because at the end of the day, you want something. You want to connect to Hashem. So I want a different candy instead of this candy. True, it's a much more holy, spiritual reason to learn Torah. The ultimate level of learning Torah is represented in Chanukah lights, Chanukah candles, which are light of the Torah, which it means learning the Torah for no purpose whatsoever. Only because it's a Torah of Hashem, not to connect to Hashem, because it's a Torah for the Torah itself. Not because I want to become a rabbi and smart, not because I want to know what to do, the halacha of how to act, not because I want to dazzle everyone with my brilliance, not because I even want to connect to Hashem, but rather for the sake of a Torah itself, because Torah is one with Hashem, And Hashem, it says, Anochi put his ksavis yahavis, put his essence into the Torah. And that is a level that is revealed by Chanukah candles, the godliness of the Torah. So, shkoyach for joining. Thank you very much.